for joining Fabulous Foods with Victoria Fabbo. Today I'm kindly here with my Uncle Daniel. But in Italian, we call Uncle Zio, so he's actually my Zio Daniel. And we're really excited today. We're going to be making a stew that our nonna, my grandmother, his mother, had taught him. So we'll be working on that today.
I won't say so much she taught me, but I got the recipe from watching her. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that's one of the best things about this recipe. It's about what you have in your house that makes it, and it's really to your taste. So if you don't like what I'm doing here today, you can just make some minor adjustments and you can make it yours.
Great. All right, so let's get started. All right, you ready, Zio?
I'm ready.
Let's make some stew. Yes?
Yes.
All right, so what temperature do we put on for this heat?
So you want to start off at a sauteing temperature. I'd like to do it medium because I always forget things and things will burn on me. So I like to do it slow and low and slow and have control.
I agree.
So a little bit of oil just to get them started.
Using some olive oil.
Olive oil.
Love it. Do you wait for it to sizzle? What do we do
Yeah,
next?
I'm going to let it warm up a little bit before I start putting in. So I've got, like I said, it's a vegetable stew. My favorite way of doing this is I love mushrooms, so I have to have mushrooms in when I make this stew.
Great.
But so because mushrooms have a lot of water in there, I want to render them out, so I'll put them in first.
Yep.
Then I'll put in the onions, the carrots, celery. I forgot one. See, I had to remember.
There you go.
So put those in there, let them soften up. Then I'll throw in, because I like it a little bit starchy, thick, I'll throw in the potatoes. The potatoes will let out the starch and thicken it up a little bit.
Definitely.
So I want them to cook through. I also have cut these in a quick cook style because they're a smaller cut. But this soup really is better, or the stew is really better when you let it cook for a long period of time. So if you want to let it cook for an hour or an hour and a half, cut the portions a little bit thicker so that this way they won't waste away while they're cooking. So
okay, that makes sense. And interesting, you put the mushrooms in first.
Yes, that's because I want to render out all of that water in there.
Yep.
And I kind of use it as a trick. And again, I'm not a professional chef, I'm a home chef. I do this because they're going to render out the water. Then when I put in the onions, the carrots, and everything else, the water from the mushrooms will actually help steam and soften those vegetables, and I don't have to do one of these things where you're flipping and flopping. Like I said, I like this because it's a great winter stew. It's hearty. It warms you right up, and the best thing about it is I like the bread. I like putting bread in there in the end. But the reason why I do that is because, again, I don't want to waste my time. I just want to go, okay, next ingredient, and just keep building it. And then eventually, once we finish with all the ingredients, we'll put the lid over it, let it stew for 30 minutes or so, and then it'll be ready.
Great.
So,
all right.
So you get started.
The oil smells nice and heated now.
Yeah.
Mushrooms in first. That sizzle sound's my favorite noise ever. Means first step's good.
So we're just going to let these sit there for a little bit where they're going to start releasing their natural juices.
Okay, so my Zio and my dad, they grew up in Italy, and they had a farm, and that farm is what you guys lived off of, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
For the most part.
Yeah, I'll correct you on one thing. I moved to the States when I was 6, so I won't say I lived there. Your father lived there because he worked the farm, he did everything. I was 6 years old, so I didn't really get that full experience. But a lot of these things, that's what they come from. Is because whatever you had left, that's what you used. Right. You know, they didn't. Back in those days, your grandmother, your grandfather didn't waste anything. Everything was used.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
And that's what this comes from. And this is why I like it, because the other thing too with this is you adjust it to your own flavor profile, and everybody has a different palate. So. You can adjust it. You can adjust the salt. You can adjust the pepper. All of that. You can adjust it to make it your own. So.
Perfect. Good.
And I think the French have something similar. It's called, I think it's a ratatouille.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very similar.
There we go. Any vegetable stew is my calling.
Yeah. And now, for those that aren't vegetarians, if you want to spice it up a little bit, one thing you could do is, instead of doing the mushrooms first, you could get yourself a sausage, cut it up, put it in there, let it render. Then once it's the fat is rendered, you could take it out because you don't want it to cook for that long.
Yep.
And just remove the fat. Just keep yourself maybe 1 or 2 spoonfuls of the fat. Leave that in there, and then start using that. Use the fat as your oil, and then start putting all of your things in there. It's going to give you a little bit more heartiness, but I like the vegetable stews. I'm trying to become a little bit more plant-based, so
here we are.
Everything is a plant-based ingredient on this.
There you go.
So.
And I've been doing a lot more beans in all my soups.
Me too.
And I actually, my friend, her grandmother hasn't been eating too well. So I told her, just puree the beans or puree the meat, add it in the soup, so she'll eat it.
Yeah.
And she'll get more protein that way.
Yeah.
So even if you wanted to do that, you could puree some beans, and it could soften up and cook this way and cook in the stew.
Yeah.
You could do that too.
Yeah. You could easily put a bean in here. You don't even have to grind it up, puree. You can put it in right at the beginning, and as it's cooking, it's going to soften up and let go, and that'll become your starch rather than the potato. So
I love mushrooms. They smell so good. Me too.
I love mushrooms because for a lot of reasons. One, they take the flavor whatever you're cooking with it, and it'll take it in there. But secondly, especially when you get something meaty like this, or shiitake, or I forget the other one that's one of my favorites. But they have a very meaty texture.
Oyster ones?
Yeah, oyster mushrooms. Yes.
Oh, they're yummy too. I love them.
So as you can see, it's starting to sweat. So this is a little bit hot, but at this point now I can start dumping the rest of the ingredients in here, and that'll start softening up. And as I do this, then I'll add just a little bit of salt to start letting the water out from.
Okay. And how long do you think it took you to cut all of this?
It took me probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but I'm also always trying to be very diligent. As you can see, I was putting a little rectangle, not rectangular,
a little
diagonal cuts on there. So.
But that's good, 15 minutes. So to make a one-pot soup.
Yes.
I think that's
I am.
What do you need next, Chef?
Sorry.
No, don't be.
So like I said, I'm not a professional chef, but I do like to learn from them. So I love watching all of the cooking shows.
I know. So a lot when we were growing up too, especially. I remember.
And and the reason why I like watching that is, I said, my mom growing up, when I'd ask her for recipes, it would be, just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Un pizzico di questo, un pizzico di quello. Problem is my little bit is a lot different than her little bit. So it can never get recipes
just a handful.
Exactly, yeah. I could never get the recipes exact. So I wanted to learn from people who do this professionally, and and I take their trips, and a lot of things like that I do here. I've actually maybe augmented it a little bit because of the way my mother used to cook versus what I do, and that's just from some of the tricks that I've learned from the professional chefs or the celebrity chefs you see on TV.
Right.
And believe me, I ruined this way more times than I've made it better, because when I first was trying to replicate it, your grandmother wasn't here anymore, and that was, like I said, it was one of my little things that brought me back to her, and I was trying to do it, and either too much salt, or cooked it too long and burnt it, or burnt the bottom, because it does have a little bit of sauce in here, so you got to be careful with it on the bottom.
Definitely.
So I've probably ruined the first year I probably ruined it, and I probably ate it when it wasn't really good, but it was like, I'm not throwing it away.
No, you can't throw it out.
Yeah. So, but it took time, and I learned, and I've gotten better, and I don't want to say it's perfected, because I think we could always improve.
Definitely.
But I think it's at a point where it's good. I enjoy it. My wife loves it. She loves it when I make it for her. So the only thing I have to adjust for when I make it for her is have to make sure that I got to be careful with the chili flakes.
The spice level.
The spice level.
But at my house, sometimes we make a separate pot. So we have to do that. I don't know if you do that too. Or you take it out ahead of time. No,
I'll just adjust it, and then what I'll do for myself, I'll either add the chili flakes, or I'm actually become a big fan of chili oil.
Yeah.
Either that or sriracha, so one of those things, and I'll just put it in my plate and just heats it up. Now, the one thing I'm doing is I'm going to put the chili flakes in, because I want to do it. And this is one of the things my mom wouldn't have done, but one of the things that I picked up from the professionals is let the spices bloom. So I'm going to put a little bit of the chili flakes in here.
So any dried herbs, when you're making a stew, you want to put them in first so they get their time
Yeah.
to blossom, like you said, bloom.
Yeah.
Fresh herbs you want to put in at the last bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And now the other thing, in order to give this a little bit more umami, I would say,
Ooh, okay.
a little bit of tomato paste, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to brown this up.
Okay.
Probably a tablespoon.
I was just going to say, that looks like a good tablespoon. Great.
And get yourself a good tomato paste, because I do find that it makes a big difference.
I actually never seen it in the tube like that. Or like I
Yeah.
don't normally grab it that way.
Yeah, I got it that way because I was sick and tired of opening up a can and then having it go bad.
Yeah.
Because I don't use it,
True.
you don't use it all the time. You only
Right.
use it when you're making a sauce or you're doing something like this. So you open up one of those little cans, you don't use the whole thing. Because
No.
again, I'm not using it to make the sauce, I'm using it to give that flavor profile.
Right.
So,
Well, when I was in the chili competition a couple of weeks ago now, and I got the tomato paste, but I got it out of the can, and then I got canned tomatoes, which we always talk about this too. The canned tomatoes, we normally, when we make tomato sauce, we get the pureed kind. This one had the seeds in it,
yeah, so.
but the seeds ended up like going away, and it was really nice in this
Yeah,
chili
so
this time.
I-
was happy by that.
My mom used to always buy the kitchen, what was called the kitchen ready.
one. Yeah,
I
mine
had
too.
I had a bad experience with them once.
Oh.
Because it made my sauce come out too acidy. I have a big problem with tomato sauce.
Right.
So acidity. So when I go out to eat, I'll know right away whether it's a sauce, whether they
Yeah.
augmented the sauce with sugar and whatnot. Because as soon as I start eating it, I start getting heartburn. And whether it's tomato sauce or whether it's a pizza sauce, I can tell right away because within 15 minutes I'll start getting it. So one of the things that I do is I buy whole plum tomatoes in their juices, and then I crush them manually. You
okay.
So you
Yeah.
can do that. I have actually gotten her Zia now,
Yeah.
my wife, into it because she feels it's therapeutic because she gets to go in there and she gets to squish it.
Get all that
Get all the anger out,
tension out of the
yes.
day. Manual work does that.
Yes.
I also think being over the stove and looking into the pot, it's really centering and it brings you really
Right,
present
present,
to
yes.
that moment because you have to make sure what you're doing is accurate.
So now to get the potatoes started again, I want, as the professionals say, brown food tastes good, so I want to brown them up a little bit.
Okay.
So. And that'll also release some of the water that they have in there. Now, I know one of the things, like I said, I prepped all of this beforehand. And potatoes, if you cut them and you don't put them in water, they will get brown, dark. So I
good.
put them with salted water.
Perfect.
So I'm actually not even going to add any salt to this right now because they've already been, they've brined. Yeah, they've already soaked it in. So.
And a nice, like fine dining restaurants put potatoes, French fries, they'll cut the potatoes, put them in a brine, the salt water mixture, and they'll let go overnight. And then they might do it a second night too, just to make sure it's extra crispy and flavorful too. So it's kind of the same thing we're doing.
So, and again, one of the things you have to adjust the heat constantly because I just put all the stuff in there.
Yep.
It lowered the temperature.
Right.
So I got to bring the temperature back up so that you can, like you said, that sound, that sizzle.
That
You want to
sizzle.
hear that sizzle. So.
Then you know it's good. What other sounds do you think you like to listen to when you're making a stew or something?
For me, it's this, but it's really the aromas. That's what takes me back. It's when I start doing this, and it's the aromas of the garlic, the herbs, the tomatoes that come in together, and it brings me back. And that I think that's one of the reasons why I love cooking as much as I love eating, is because it brings me back to my mom, to my dad, to my youth when we were all together as a family. So I think that's what it brings me back to, and that's what I enjoy about it. So I try to experiment as much as possible, but because I want to get back to my roots, I always do a lot of the same old pasta sauces or whatnot. So, but now one of the things I got to learn to do is got to see how I can convert a lot of the recipes into plant-based. So I'm not going full vegan, but I do want to make sure that I eat much more plant-based foods.
I think you've been doing a great job
Yeah.
trying that this year.
Yeah. And actually, this week, we, talking about beans, I've been doing a lot of salads and using lentils.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Using the lentils in there.
Good protein too.
Protein, yeah.
Yeah. You could even add lentils to this stew. You could add lentils to any stew.
Yeah. And actually, they don't change the flavor profile that much in it.
I don't think so.
Actually, one recipe that I want to try out, I saw one for lentil chili.
Ooh, yeah.
So.
Definitely. Vegan's a lot of effort. I praise those who can do it.
Yeah.
But I enjoy butter too much.
Well, that's my problem. You know what it is? I don't think it's a lot of effort. I think it's that we grew up eating dairy, meat, whatnot. And so we're so used to it, we don't think about the recipes that we want to cook. We just do it. But now, I think the problem is that we try to make vegan taste the same way that a dairy or a meat dish, and it's not going to. Make your own, and that's why I'm actually looking at recipes from internationally, like Thai, Indian, because that's what they grew up cooking. So that it's going to have the same flavor profile that they grew up with. You can't make a bean taste like a steak. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. If that's what you want, then eat a steak.
Well, happy to have you come back on the show, and we'll have to learn. We'll cook and learn new recipes. Then they'll be good.
Absolutely.
Okay, happy to have you back.
And I've learned that not everybody likes garlic. It's just like your father. So
they don't like garlic?
They don't like garlic.
They're not Italian.
So in certain things I squash the clove down and let it cook with it, because eventually it'll just become mush. So they won't know.
I love garlic so much. I always like to I'll cut it all up or like food process it, and I'll have so much, and then I freeze it. So because I don't want it to go to waste, and there's already a whole clove, whatever. So then I can just throw it in my eggs and anything else I'm cooking. But I love garlic so much. Good antioxidants. All right, so we have potatoes in here. We have mushrooms, onions, garlic, celery, carrots. All right, we've got a good stew we're brewing.
Yeah.
Nice.
So now we're gonna add.
All right, now we have extra fun vegetables coming.
We have zucchini and summer squash.
Oh, very good.
For the color. Gotta
love color. Green and yellow.
Yes.
Ooh, nice. Okay. I can't wait for zucchini season. At vegetable season. Spring's coming. I still love my stews. I still want soup and stew every day still.
Now eggplant.
And then eggplant too. Nice. And those will be nice and water. They'll leach their water out too.
So and what I try to do for these stews, I try not to get the biggest eggplant that you can find. I want the smaller eggplant. So this particular one they call it an Italian eggplant. It's not the big ginormous eggplant that you see in the store that's like this. It's actually more like this. So
not the big giant one.
Not the big giant one, because what I find is, especially with the big giant ones, they have more seeds and they have more acidity, and thereby, like I said before, I get the acid reflux if I have too much acid. So I try to mitigate that by finding the younger, smaller ones. And one of my favorite ones actually to use in this is actually the graffiti ones, they're purple with stripes of white in it, and then they don't get the same size as the traditional one. So.
And you see, he's been slowly salting it. The dietitian in me can start to panic at times when I see salt, but you have to remember salt is a flavor enhancer, right? So you do need it at times. So when are we thinking of adding the vegetable stock then?
We're gonna let all of this stuff stew a little bit.
Okay.
And then we're gonna add the vegetable stock, and then we'll add probably about 8 ounces of the tomato to give it color.
Okay.
And then we'll put a lid on this and let it go.
All right, sounds good. So
and then
you add.
Sorry, I'm gonna say at the end I have, like I said, this is whatever's in your fridge. And last night I had snow peas in my fridge.
Yeah.
So I cut them up. But I love the peppers in here. So I sliced up, and I don't like the green ones. I like the colored ones. So that's why you won't see any green ones here. But so I cut them up so that they'll not cook quickly, because I'm going to put these at the end, because just like the herbs, I want the crunch and I want the freshness of it to go against all of the I don't want to say overcooked, but the well cooked vegetables. Okay. So, and that's why I put that in it. Put it in the last 10 minutes so that they warm through, but they aren't fully cooked yet.
Okay.
And again, my mother would never do that, this is how I made it my own.
I was gonna say, this is all preferences. Maybe some people want it all one consistency, and maybe you want some of it crunchy, so
Yeah.
up to what you like. And then how long do you think these zucchini and eggplant take to cook?
So the way I sliced it here, you're probably talking about once we add the stock and the tomato, probably about 20 to 30 minutes because, again, I don't like it to be super soft. I'd like it to have a little bit of tooth still to it. So that's going to be about 20 to 30 minutes. But again, you know, each kitchen is different. So I would say one of the things I learned when I first started cooking was taste along the way. Don't take you know, the professionals tell you 15 minutes, yeah, but your oven doesn't cook the same way their oven cooks. So make sure you check on it. So if you're supposed to be 15, check on it at 10 and see if it needs that extra 5 minutes. If not, hey, because I burned too many things or undercooked too many things. Undercooking's not that bad because you can continue, but when you burn something, you can't bring it back. So.
Do you want me to pass you anything?
No, right now I just want to let this steam a little bit. Actually, do we have a lid for this?
Sure. You put the lid on.
Yeah, and the reason why I put the lid on here is because I want the steam, the fluid, the liquid from the vegetables themselves to steam themselves a little bit longer. So that's why I'm putting that in there. That just makes it go quicker.
And what temperature do you have it on?
Right now I have it on medium.
And you'll keep it there while the lid's on?
Yeah, while the lid's on there, just to get it to going, just to get the juices flowing, and then we'll start adding the stock and whatnot.
Okay.
Now, one thing that I do with the stock is when I add it, because if I add it all in one shot, it's going to bring the temperature down. So I do it in like small little spurts. Add the stock, let it start to come to a boil, add some more stock, let it come to a boil, add some more stock. So that this way I'm not having everything, all the temperature drop down all in one shot. Again, this is something I've learned from myself. It's not something that I've learned from anybody else. You do what you want. Again, the kitchen is all about you because you gotta enjoy it.
Thought too. Want me to heat up the stock now for you?
If you want, we can do that too.
Could give that a try
that's another
too.
way. Yeah, that's another way.
Okay.
But I usually don't want. I hate cleaning, so I don't want to
waste a pot. That's a good idea too. All right, welcome back, guys. Our stew has been stewing. All right, Zio, how's it going?
It's going well. So you can see the all of the vegetables have softened up, which is where I want them to be. But now because I want to add the stock, I'm going to increase the heat a little bit, just so that when the stock hits this, it's not going to bring the temperature down too much because, as Victoria said earlier, that sizzle is what you want to hear. You see that sizzling in the background? So since Victoria heated it up, I can add the stock all in one shot.
Beautiful.
Okay. So now before I add the tomato, though, one of the things I like to do is I like to wait and for it to start to bubble up a little bit. But now one of the things you can see is that all that brown color that the vegetables had started to acquire now is transitioning to the stock itself. So you see the brown. So all that flavoring is coming into that stock itself.
Okay.
So now that we've put the stock in, I'm going to add a bay leaf. Just you got to be careful with bay leaves because they can add there's a lot of punch to the flavoring that they add. But you will miss it at the end if you don't put it in there. So just put in one bay leaf, and you're not going to eat this afterwards. You're going to take it out because if you've ever eaten a bay leaf, you'll know you don't want to eat the bay leaf.
Not very pleasant.
Yeah, so you want to put that in there. It's just going to add its flavor profile. So as you can start seeing, the stock is starting to do little tiny bubbles. So we'll wait just a little bit longer. Then we'll add the sauce, and then we're just going to let it sit and do its thing for the next 15-20 minutes.
Great. Okay. So you're going to put the lid on now?
No, just going to wait for the sauce. Let this come up to a little bit longer.
Okay.
Then we're going to add the tomato.
Perfect. Thank you.
So as I said, you can get away with doing your own. You can buy the crushed canned tomatoes. This is 1 can, 16 ounces of Roma tomatoes that with their own sauce. And these, what I like about this particular brand, it actually comes with the basil leaf in it. So I just it goes right in there.
Great. Thank you.
And so, like I said, you can buy crushed tomatoes and do it just the same way. I have just become accustomed to just buying the whole tomatoes
Yeah.
at this point, and that's the way I do it. So now it's going to look a little loose from I think it's going to look more like a soup than a stew. But don't forget, we're going to let this simmer for a while, and when I do this, I leave the cover ajar just a slight bit so that steam will evaporate out of there.
Perfect.
Okay?
Thanks, Zio. All right, guys, we'll be right back. All right, so our stew's been stewing, and now how are we thinking it's going now, Zio?
I think it's going very well. We're going to do the traditional taste test because, like I said earlier, you want to taste along the way because one of the things you want to do is make sure you don't oversalt, but you also want to make sure you don't undersalt because she taught me, because she's the nutritionist, that salt is not good for you. Having high blood pressure, it's really not good for you, but you got to have flavor because otherwise, what's the use of living and eating if you can't enjoy it? Okay. So we just want to take it and taste it and make sure that it's got what it needs.
This is the home recipes, the home way.
Yes, and it's got the perfect amount of salt, nice kick in the back of your throat. You get the heat, so it's perfect. So at this point, we're ready. I'm going to put in the final ingredients. Like I said earlier, I want it to be crunchy, just want them to heat through. So we're going to put in some chopped peppers, orange and red. I like the color. It gives me a little bit of vibrancy into the soup. Okay. So we'll throw that in. And again, I don't need to salt it again because they're going to pull it from the sauce itself. And like I said, I had some snow peas that I had left over in the house, and I chopped them up into bite-full sizes and gonna throw those in. And again, for these two, we're not gonna wait for them to cook through. You can if you don't like it crunchy. I like that little bit of crunch because that's gonna play against the soft carrots and the soft potatoes and other vegetables that are in there. So I like that little contrast of texture between the two.
Look at the color now too.
Yes.
Looks great.
And that's exactly the other reason why I like that, is because then you get the color, which you eat with your eyes, with your nose, and in your mouth. So. All right. And if it doesn't look good first, you're probably not going to put it in your mouth.
True. All right, so how long should we let this set for then?
About 5 to 10 minutes just to let it warm through, and then it's ready to go. But I said if you want it to cook through, then you're going to want to let it cook for a little bit longer, but then just test the vegetables because different vegetables cook at different rates, so you want to just make sure.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll be back, guys. Welcome back, guys. Thanks, Zio, for coming on the show and making this stew.
This was great for me. Awesome.
It smells great for me. So, All right, so we're gonna plate it up. So we have zucchini, eggplant, snap peas, carrots, celery, onion, and potato. Think how many vegetables we have, and tomato paste and tomato sauce. Oop, I need a napkin because I spilled. It's the story of my life. Home remedies, be patient. When you're cooking, right, you have to be patient with yourself because nothing, like you said, is going to come out perfect the first time. I know my parents can attest to that when they've eaten my food. Yeah. So I think it's flavorful when you see it with a bunch of colors, or people might want it with a lot of broth. So I think that's really up to you and what you might like. Yeah.
My favorite way is with the nice crusty French bread, because you want to sop off all that goodness.
All that juice, yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, Zio, and cheers.
Cheers. Salute.
Salute.
Buon appetito.
Buon appetito.